Hi there. This is a quick question that came up after a recent behind-the-scenes video for House of the Dragon, combined with some statements that the actors made in The Hollywood Reporter, that they built the Red Keep as a fully realized interior set. And do I consider that a waste of resources, given that Game of Thrones had some problems doing that kind of thing? My answer is no. I do not have a problem with that. It makes sense in this context. They didn't build, I'm using that word wrong, they didn't build a fully realized Red Keep because that would be impossible. Though what they said simply is, whereas all of the Red Keep interior sets used to be in different places when they were in Belfast throughout Titanic Studios, because they are using them so extensively, because there's so many scenes set in the Red Keep for a show about the Targaryens, that they just pushed all of the interior sets together. So, for starters, they didn't go out of their way to build more than they were going to. Like, it's as if you took the same amount, the same number of interior sets, and simply interconnected them, because Leavesden is bigger. You could fit Titanic Studios into Leavesden 10 times over, though, because it's a filming hub for WB. Other things are using other sound stages there, but they didn't go out of their way to build it. It's they interconnected what they had already built. That's the first point. And when they're talking about, all this stuff, let me read off the THR thing here. First off, Emma Darcy pointed this out directly in the Return to Westeros featurette, going, whoa, they built the whole castle. You think you have to tell them not to do that? And here, again, Emma's saying, they're saying, it's almost like they don't know how to do film. They built the whole thing. It doesn't need separate rooms, and this is important, you can do just one big long tracking shot all the way through the castle. And also that it's 3 stories, that it's 3 stories tall of interior scenes. Some of these have, staircases and stuff. And wow, you could do tracking shots in it. And a lot of people have been joking, over Twitter and stuff, wow, they're going to do, including myself, they're going to do Aaron Sorkin newsroom style walk and talk scenes. He's famous for that, of having the West Wing style people walking through multiple rooms as the camera follows their conversation. That would be fun if they have the option to do that now. But my point was first that, well, they didn't build that many new sets. They just interconnected the sets they had. Of why are we keeping these things separate? We have them. Let's maybe build a hallway that wasn't there before, but it's not that much new construction. Other point is, yeah, that this is for, if you've read The Rogue Prince, which season 1 is based on, the first prequel novella about the dance of the dragons, the Civil War. So much of this story is set in and around King's Landing, and particularly the royal court at the Red Keep. It makes sense to do that. I mean, even Matt Smith has openly said this is so focused on just King's Landing, Dragonstone, Driftmark, and the Stepstones, which is basically fighting on a beach over some. That why are we sending men to fight and die over this worthless hunk of barren rock? Well, it's commands the trade routes for the spice trade, sir. So all of that, but we're not seeing that many new things. We're seeing them in more detail. That it isn't a globe-spanning thing, and that they've talked about that. So it completely makes sense if you've seen this, so much of it's in the royal court, that we're going to have extensive Red Keep sets. Might as well interconnect them. Problem we had on late Game of Thrones, and I don't want to dwell on this too long, is you've seen the criticisms from the behind-the-scenes stuff where, like, they built a fully realized King's Landing city streets set, and they showed this in the behind-the-scenes thing. They were, like, furnishing the interiors of shops that they knew the camera would never go into. And this took how many man-hours on such a large scale? It took 7 months to build. And even they were, like, awkwardly nervous after they finished because they realized how little they used it. Or Winterfell. The Winterfell set had, like, a functioning bakery and a functioning brewery that they knew would never appear on camera. And to an extent, there's a giant battle scene at Winterfell. It kind of makes some sense on paper to build a fully realized Winterfell. But, like, furnishing the interiors of the bakeries that you knew you would never put the camera on. That was just showing off that you could spend money. And some people, the reason I'm making this video, some people are worried, oh, they're just showing off. And Emma Darcy's impressed because they haven't been on a thing of this scale. But in this context, it makes sense to do the Red Keep like that because so much of the story is set there for season 1. It's not fully realized. It's not exteriors. It's all the interior sound stages. I think something like half of season 1. I saw a breakdown by Screen Time once. That like half of season 1 is set in and around King's Landing and the Red Keep. No, the King's Landing in general, not just the Red Keep. But I can see why they needed to do this. And in closing, think of other major, like the top 3 or 4 primary locations on Game of Thrones: Winterfell and Castle Black. And for season 1, they built a fully realized Castle Black set where the exteriors and interiors are all there. Granted, it's not this grand royal palace. It's this rough-looking winter military barracks, but it's still fully realized, and it made sense to do that. And they didn't show it off enough because it's a whole thing of they didn't like camera motion because they didn't know cinematography. And then like Neil Marshall came in season 4 for the Watchers on the Wall episode, and he was looking at them like, you have a fully realized set for this castle. Why haven't you ever used a 360-degree tracking shot to show? In the battle actually has people running between the different sections that we had never seen on camera. That, oh, the top of that wall connects to the kitchen. You could plausibly do a walk and talk. They just never bothered to, which was a waste of a set. And was so weird, and some pointed out, jarring, when this outsider film director, major mainstream film director from The Descent, came in and actually tried to show that it was a fully connected set, that it looks like something from a cable TV show in the 90s in terms of the camera work, that you never see people walking between rooms. They might as well be on different sound stages. So this is like the level you saw Castle Black in the early seasons, or Winterfell in season 1. We're not really seeing Winterfell. We might see it a little in season 2. Castle Black is not in this whatsoever. They don't need to rebuild that at Leavesden because it was in Ireland. They don't need that. The big things they need are Red Keep, parts of King's Landing, to an extent parts of Dragonstone. That'll be a separate thing unto itself, but yeah, I expect more than 50% of the scenes in this show to be in or around the Red Keep. In season 1. Season 2, when there's battles and stuff, it'll be different. So, in case you were getting weirded out that, didn't someone tell them you can't do stuff on this skit? For the amount of stuff set in the Royal Palace, this makes sense. Like, if this was a story about Henry II Plantagenet, with Eleanor of Aquitaine, I imagine that their castle Chinon would take up like 90% of the setting. That it makes sense that the royal palace, it's a thing about kings. Obviously, they'd need a set for that. So I'm rambling on about this for more than 7 minutes. I'm sorry, but just this was a production thing. I wanted to separate it into its own video so it didn't take up too much time. And another one that, yeah, the Red Keep is a major set, and it's nice that they just interconnected everything. They didn't build that much more than they would have. They just like built connecting hallways of, why not just put these things together? We have the space. Leavesden Studios is huge. And keep an eye out for this. Imagine how different the camera work is going to be in this show, that you can actually have the camera follow people from one room to the next. Like they sometimes were doing at Castle Black, only more so. And thankfully, I've heard that from the spoiler-free reviews from people like David Lightbringer, who I asked him directly, and he told me over Twitter, you can tell that the directors, it's Sapochnik himself, because it's the same director, is no longer restrained by the old showrunners telling him, no, do not use camera motion, focus with close-ups on the faces, that just from the first episode alone, it's not like doing experimental stuff, but yeah, the camera will follow people. And it's so jarring, because like this is how other shows are filmed. And but it manages to, the way he said it was, it feels more like Westeros than ever before. And it's the same director. That's what I think we needed, that of having the same director who wanted to have tracking shots, now able to do that. And that's just episode 1. Imagine what we'll be doing with people doing all sorts of stuff, mostly season 1. The story goes beyond the Red Keep a lot after that. But just all the royal court stuff and just walking between a study and a private chambers or something. The visual language of this show, of having an interconnected set like that, and having people point out we should be using tracking shots in the first set of interviews. Whereas the other show, they had to be dragged kicking and screaming into Neil Marshall yelling at them in the 4th season, why aren't you using 360 shots of the fully realized Castle Black set you built? And they really did not like doing that because they didn't know film. They had by their own admission, no experience in television, versus these guys right up front, they're willing to, they can edit this stuff if they want to, the behind the scenes stuff. They are allowing Emma Darcy and other cast members to point out, wow, you could do like tracking shots of people walking between rooms in this thing because they interconnected everything. They are proud of that now. They want to show that level of motion. So I'm looking forward to the possibilities this opens up.